Imagine a school where things were so bad that the principal had a gun held to his head, where members of staff suffered post-traumatic stress as a result of the constant violence and dysfunction. A place where some students saw their school only as a conduit to a life of crime in order to escape generational poverty. That was our school. Once thriving, it had lost its way. Enrolments were down. Education was no longer the core business. Visitors were greeted with barbed wire fencing and bars on windows. There was an anger in the school that simmered just beneath the surface, and a clear us and them mentality separated teachers and the students. I'll never forget my first day there. Within an hour, I was dealing with a fight. It was pretty serious and one boy was badly hurt. I learned then that that would not be my last sight of blood. It's easy to give up on a place like that. You can always blame the community. You can always blame the kids. You can always blame the system. But you can't. Because where there's a heartbeat, there's life. And so 8 years on, and our school is almost unrecognisable. Enrolments have almost doubled. Gone is the barbed wire and the bars. So too the violence and the apathy towards education. It's been replaced with a can-do attitude and a deep-seated belief that our school, once a last resort, is now a great school. We've got a waiting list of teachers. Our community dinner, which started with 50 people in attendance, now has over 600. Our students line up for leadership positions, and our boys, well, they wear their uniform with great pride. They want to be at this school. Every morning, the deputy principals and I greet the students at the front gate. We share stories, we have a laugh, we welcome them. We're building relationships every single day. My parents, born in Lebanon, came here in 1974. And like many migrant parents, their dream was that their eldest son would become a doctor. But that's another story. My father never had the chance to finish his schooling, and yet he remains as one of the greatest teachers that I've ever met. He drilled into us the importance of learning. And as for Mum, well, I'll remember the floral shirt that she bought me for my first day of teaching. It was her way of showing her pride, but it also showed me she was stuck in the 70s. Thanks, Mum. Maybe it was the lucky shirt. Maybe it was the fact that I actually started to dress myself. But within 10 years, I was appointed as one of the youngest principals in the state to Punchbowl Boys High School. A school where too many people had given up on. I heard all sorts of stories before I started there. You're wasting your time. It's a dead-end school for deadbeats. But I drew the line when a teacher said to me, these kids aren't worth it. I knew they were. I didn't want to mark my time as the principal and then move on to something better. I wanted to make our school the something better that people were looking for. I wanted to create a sense of belonging, a community, a school family. And so from pretty early on, everything became about family. I drew on that idea that a family has your back, that a family wants what's best for you, that a family is there for you. The school had been missing a heart, and in creating a sense of family, we not only found our heart, but we developed our soul. We started to remove obstacles for the kids so they could succeed. If they didn't have food, we gave them something to eat. If they didn't have the right equipment, we found some for them. If they didn't believe in themselves, we built it into them. We were there for them when they fell, and we were there for them when they needed shoulders to stand on. And with this lens, we decided to review everything in the school. From the things that we were offering, subjects we were offering, through to the quality of our teaching, even down to the food that we were selling in the canteen. From that point on, being just good enough was no longer good enough. But it takes a lot of things to make change. And these changes were underpinned, I think, by three crucial elements. The first was that we had to soften the hard edge of our boys. We had to work that gang mentality out of them. We wanted them to start coming to the school, but we wanted them to come to school so they could learn. We started focusing on the good stuff, not just the problems. We tried to catch them doing the right thing and acknowledge them for that. And you know what? Pretty soon their attitude started to change for the better. We had more bums on seats and a greater effort in the classroom. Most significantly, the boys had no excuse no longer to succeed. The second crucial element was in empowering our amazing staff. They are the heart and the soul that turned our vision into reality. I didn't want staff who felt like they were just being there as some sort of community service. Today, it's the norm for our staff to be at school outside of regular hours. Whether they're helping the kids with additional work, running sports programs, mentoring, career guidance, or even doing some maintenance in the school that we can't afford. They give the best of themselves, the same that they would want for their own children, because they believe in the school and the vision that we've got. They are resilient. They are inspiring. And yep, you guessed it, we're family, we're not just colleagues. The third, and I think most critical element, was in engaging our community. The parents of our boys are good people, and they want what every person wants for their own children, the very best. When they wanted some advice on tips to deal with teenage boys, we ran evening classes for them. So successful were these classes that our evening lessons have now become an institution. And they are typified by goodwill, great humour, learning, but best of all, the best food you're ever going to eat. The parents have become our loudest advocates, and they have put their complete faith in us. So did all this tinkering and reviewing and engaging and all that sort of stuff actually make a difference academically? Well, you tell me. Last year, 65% of our boys went on to further education. Compare that. Compare that to just 30% 8 years ago. I told you our teachers were good. The concept of family, though, is no better typified than in Sam. Sam's a refugee from Sierra Leone who joined us at the age of 15. He'd only had 9 months of formal education. There was no mum or dad on the scene, and I knew my history enough not to ask any questions. One particular day, I stood at the gate, and I was stopping this drunk person from coming into the school. I didn't know the person. He had no business in being in the school, but he was insistent on coming in. And I was insistent on him staying out. Out of nowhere, Sam materialised beside me. He'd sensed that something was wrong, and he wanted to protect me. He had my back. Once the situation resolved itself peacefully, I actually asked Sam, have you ever been in a fight? He said that he hadn't. And at that moment, I knew exactly what he was doing. He was repaying us for the kindness, for the compassion, and for the love that he'd received from his new family. It's hard not to be moved by something like that. In softening the boys, though, I almost lost my 2 deputy principals. And they're more like a brother and a sister to me than a deputy. Recently, they both handed me together an envelope with their resignation attached. They said that the school was not what they'd signed up for and that they needed to move on. They'd been prepared, and they had in the past dealt with fights, swearing, carrying on, and misbehaviour. But they were not prepared or even equipped to deal with the latest problem. They'd just come back from solving an argument between 2 boys, which in itself is nothing unusual. except for the fact that the two boys, they were arguing over the choice of hand cream to use. The deputies got me a beauty, and it's good to say they still work with me as well. It's the funny stories that keep us sane. Our school was once deemed ready for the scrap heap, but our experience shows that you can change the culture and you can change the trajectory of any organisation. It's a truth for everyone. If you work with your heart and you open your arms, others will join you. The positivity is infectious, and superstars, well, they're made of ordinary people. I'd like to see a bright future for schools, where the simple concept of belonging is not something that we strive for, but rather something that is inherent. Where regardless of where a school sits on some simplistic ranking system, the important measure is in the strength of its heart and in its soul. Thank you.